So, hello everybody. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's really, really a big pleasure. I mean, just after Fiona's talk, this was immensely interesting. It's super, super right, because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be pushing you a little bit more to that direction. I might offend one or two of you, but I do it in a nice way. So normally I give this presentation at other kinds of events. I'm from the startup scene. We do this in all sorts of pitch battles. We do this for innovation. We do this in front of telecommunication companies and all sorts of other companies to show what we've been done actually can be done by a lot of other people. We also do it in front of federations. That's a completely different ballpark. So you're going to find out why. So I'm going to give you a little overview first, where I come from, then about what we did, and then how you can apply this in your daily routine. My background is in advertising and events. I come from big stage design, festivals, crazy tours, private jets with airplanes to the biggest festivals, and all the fanciness of attracting people to one big show with a big idea, normally with a product behind it or anything, a fashion show, a car reveal, or whatever you think of it, but with the essence of wowing people. So we always worked with something that we we always said it's impossible in the beginning. Like we tried to come up with something completely new that people haven't seen to get their attention and then get them hooked to a certain topic. That led me to Antarctica, so I did like art installations there with National Geographic. We did nice projects in the Sahara Desert, like that was the artsy top of the iceberg. But I also opened up the first surf school in North Korea. Out of the same reason. You want to attract people, there's a certain topic, we look at this country in a certain way. Why not switch it up and have a surf school there? Have people surf with the locals and you get a completely different picture and people start thinking about it and you have their attention. So, at some point, we basically condensed that down to people just love outstanding things. And this gets harder and harder every day. All of you know attention span nowadays is decreasing. Everything we do, you have our attention for 10 seconds. If you don't really wow us in that 10 seconds, I'm off to something else. So I looked at one problem and said, okay, why is it that people are not active enough? And how can we actually change that? So having done all these big fashion shows and everything, I was like, maybe it's time to put my creativity to work with something that's a little bit more meaningful than the next season is orange or the new Mini has more round headlights, you should buy it and get rid of the old one. So we looked at this problem. We thought, okay, what can we actually do to get all these people that are just simply too lazy, to get them to move and make them like fully immersed in this activity? So, sports tech sounds like the great solution. Everything that we do nowadays is tech-driven. We said, okay, why don't we like go into it? So we looked at all the sports tech that's out there, and we were like, okay, cool. So there's a massive problem. We know it's wrong. We know that it's absolutely obvious, and Fiona pointed it out so perfectly well. But we're trying to solve it with a lot of fun gimmicks. We're saying like, hey, get a Fitbit. You're gonna love running. No, people don't. They love the Fitbit, it's fun, they probably use it, and it's like, hey, look, I did this many steps today. But they're not going to become an avid runner. They're not going to go play tennis three times a week because they now have a smart tennis racket, and when they go back home, they can go into the browser, log in their profile, and see, look, I did 1,200 swings, and 200 of those were good. It's not doing the trick. So we said, okay, we need to do something to get these people. Maybe do a little bit more of that, but in a smart way. So what we created is a fully joined interaction between real sports and gamification. So you'll see it here. What we do is we create hardware to upgrade existing sport courts, because we're a big, big fan of the sports facility per se, where people come together, where people actually engage with each other, they learn, and so on. But at the same time, we need to make it modern. So this is what we've created. So what you see here is a little variety of some of the different products we have. I'm not going to go into deep. This is not a sales pitch. But imagine 20 years ago I came to you and say, like, look, you're going to be carrying around a little box, and it's going to do all your computing. You're going to have all the maps you're ever going to need. It's a typewriter. It's a camera. It's everything that you would ever imagine. You can get in touch with anybody in the world. People would have looked at you and say, like, whatever, like, yeah, do that. Now I give you an iPhone, you understand it. It's a little bit like that. So once you play over there, this is one of our products, you'll probably understand what this interaction means. So far, we've had great success with a lot of companies. I am a strong believer, and this is because I've started my first company at the age of 20. If you want to change something, you need to make it a sustainable business model. Because a lot of the things that a lot of federations are trying to do right now is, like you perfectly highlighted, is let's rub a little money on it and hope it gets better. And then if we stop rubbing money on it, it just stops, and it's not helping. So what we try to create ecosystems of people that earn money with this, where trainers can get more money, where people love to spend money, where people can say, let's build a new facility, let's upgrade the old facility instead of closing it down. So it's done a lot of good. We brought some squash courts from less than 2 hours bookings per day to up to 11 hours of bookings. Why? Because we're not attracting the squash player. We're attracting anybody that wants to have some cool fun nowadays. And they're used to these things. We've learned a lot of things from gaming, from social media platforms, and so on. So what we've learned is a very, very, very simple rule. And all the different products that we launch in the different sports follow a very, very rough baseline. It's a real fun activity. And with real fun, I mean, it needs to be fun that people wake up in the morning and say, man, I really want to do this. Kids need to annoy the shit out of their parents to say, like, can we go back? And not like, oh, okay, there's a 60-year-old tennis trainer and he's going to show me how to use a racket. That doesn't compete with the stuff that we're inventing nowadays. The second thing is you need a good image. You need to make it sexy. And you need a good social framework. People buy into stories. They don't buy into, I'm hitting a ball with a tennis and, oh, I've seen somewhere a famous tennis guy. No, you need to have the full thing, and you need to be aware how other things market themselves, and we're going to get to that. Entry barriers. If you tell a kid, like, hey, why don't you, instead of playing Fortnite, who knows Fortnite? That's pretty good. Very well done. Why don't you start tennis? Fortnite, I download it, I start it, after 20 seconds, I get a hack of it, and you're in. It's just gonna give you pleasure points one after the other. Playing tennis, until you have that first moment where you say, wow, this is really amazing, it takes 15, 20, maybe 30 hours if you're not talented. You have to make it very easy. You have to like start it, and it's fun, and there you go. And the most thing is, create really memorable experiences. Create something where people go home and tell their colleagues the next day, you know what I did yesterday? It's like, well, I went for a run. It's probably not going to compete with, hey, I went skydiving or whatever, but you need to have that trigger point. Good. Everything that basically attracts us to any activity happens in our limbic system. And that's very simple. If you go back, you have to think where this comes from. This comes from hunting. This comes from finding a tree of fruit. That aha moment, that big bang, that basically tells our head, like, okay, open that little box where the endorphins come out. Okay, good, you have enough, thank you. You need to be able to trigger that. That's a tough job. I'm going to show you a couple of tricks how to do it and what to avoid soon. Good. We all know that sports comes from war. That's the reason why it works so well with our brain, because luckily enough, we don't go to war anymore. So in the old Greece, they used to have a war every once in a while. So what did all the famous soldiers do? They were training in the meantime. They were trying to chop somebody's head off. And then it was like, hey, this is actually kind of fun. Let's do that together. And they made a sport out of it. Nowadays, you have to think of it in a little bit of the same way. It has to have a certain challenge. It has to have a certain danger. It has to have a certain social element. Why do we love the most famous tennis players in the world? Because we don't have most famous warriors or soldiers anymore, which is good. Good. So when we moved over to the sport, we've obviously created a lot of things, and some things work really well, and some things obviously grown into gigantic big elements. What we do in general when we go away from the products, we try to create meaningful things. So you need to build something that is not just a fun activity for now, that goes really, really long. We're a big fan of fun. That's why we called our name Fun with Balls, because every time we say it, everybody giggles, and we love that. Obviously, we want to push an active lifestyle and save sports per se, because it might not be too obvious, but some sports are literally trying to disappear. They're going down, they're way too old, they're not attractive. We chose squash as our first sport exactly out of that reason. The average player is 40 in Germany. The average center is not a place where you really want to be. Like, it hasn't been renovated. It's a little bit stuffy. There's so many elements to it where you would say, like, you don't get the 13-year-old going there. It's like, Mom, this is really great. Can I go back next day? He's probably going to walk in and somebody's probably going to yell at him, like, why are you using a court like you're not a squash player? Get out of here. So that's something that you need to change. So with all these learnings, and I'm not a negative person, but it's super important that you are very, very self-reflective and aware of how you do this. Because there's a lot of pitfalls. A lot. And humans generally tend to have like this notion that, okay, I know what I'm doing. I'm right. Like, I have the exact knowledge of how we do this. Give me the steering wheel, I'm going to take care of it. Well, most of the times it's not the case. So we've highlighted a couple of different points here that help everybody to just do a little bit of a reality check every once in a while. Just go back and say, like, okay, this is what we're doing, so let me look from here. That's actually shit. So first, number one, really, really, really understand the youth. We've never lived in a time where things are changing that rapidly. You might know, like, oh yes, but I'm using Facebook and this and that. Hey, that stuff's old again. Like, if you look at the young generation, the people who are supposed to forward our society, our sports, who are going to buy your cars in a couple of years and so on, these people have it's like half a year, bam, bam, bam. You're still playing that? That's old. Like, oh yeah, you're still using that lingo? That's old. Like, who knows what Weebish is? Who knows what happens if I call somebody a default? No? Default is actually because there's a couple of million people playing Fortnite today. Default is if you choose a player and you don't customize it, like you don't give him other shirts, you can also buy shirts and whatever, that's the default. So if you see somebody on the street and he has really, really boring clothes, you can say, look at that default. People don't know that. But I'm not saying that you should start playing computer games, but be aware of that. Like, you need to speak their language. You need to understand their world. Who knows what this is?
What's the problem, dog? What's the...
All right. Who knows this platform? Probably 10. Who uses it? There you go. Perfect. Please, I want to have you ask a question later. That's really nice. So this is TikTok. The first time you're going to go onto it, you're going to go like, what did you think the first time that you went on it? You were like, oh my God, what's that, right? It was like mind-blowing in a weird sense, not in a good sense. It's where everybody goes to. This thing now has 500 million viewers. It has more time spent on in a certain age group than Facebook. This thing, nobody knew of it a year or 2 years ago. Nobody cared. It's where you do a little bit of lip sync. It's crazy, but it sort of is also very positive because it's very untypical to normal social media. So it's called TikTok. You should download it and take some time to look at it. It's going to brighten your day and it's going to make you very, very afraid of the future. And the most important part, and this is why I have it a second time here, now that you've looked at the youth and you've like trying to somehow understand what drives them, include them. Because it's nothing worse than knowing like, hey, we're selling our car to like stay-at-home housewives, and yeah, we think they like to cook and they go shopping, so we're going to build their car that way. It's not that way. You need to include them. You need to really take a 15-year-old in, and even if it's just 1 day a week or 1 day a month, and go like, hey, so we're a federation. We're like trying to do this sport. What would you change if you could it? Like, how would you market it? What would you like to see? And I'm not saying that you should give up your job and say like the young people run the world, but you need to somehow open the door to really have a conversation with these target groups. Because if you're talking about having a program in schools to attract young kids to do more sports, you should ask the young kids first what it takes to make them do more sports. And not say like, hey, when I grew up like 40 years ago, in school, I really like the little thing where we run around the little whatever. They're probably going to like it. It's not the case. We're like on a different planet right now. We're already like 500 years into the future. Like people are flying around with taxis and you're like, oh, this is a really good shovel. It's not happening. Good. Third thing, just a little side note, you don't know better. And I'm really, really sorry. I'm not saying I know better either, but you don't. Inform yourself and always put it into perspective that no, it's not like, because we've seen this a million times. We create super new, modern forms of sport. And in the beginning, we thought, oh, cool, that's interesting. We've heard the Tennis Federation is struggling with participation. We have our place full like 10 hours a day with like 200 kids, and they're basically waiting in line to play. Why, that's the perfect match. We realized, no, they don't want. They know better. There's like, no, they play enough already, blah, blah, blah. What we should really do is get a volunteer on the court on Saturday and give free lessons. It's going to be nice for the 2 kids, which probably the parents took along to the tennis center already, but it's not going to be nice to the school, and the next week, kids are going to be on the school. You know what, like, you really need to go to that place. It was so cool, like, I was there all Saturday. It's not happening. Good. Embrace change. Who knows what picture that is? Wow, I'm very impressed with you. We need to talk later. So this is the Drone Racing League. The Drone Racing League is a new sport. It's obviously flying a drone. Sounds very simple, but is super crazy sport. It's on a high cognitive level. They go with breakneck speed through little like obstacle courses. And you have to understand how these things evolve, because what they're doing is they're taking away people from you and attention. This Drone Racing League was started like 4 or 5 years ago. By now, like big companies like DHL, they invest millions into this thing. They have a global circus. They have superstars. So you need to be aware of how the new format of these things works in order to actually understand, okay, how do they function? Fourth thing, same like the people that you're trying to get into an active lifestyle, don't be lazy yourself. It's going to be more work. It's going to require a lot of flexibility. It might challenge your identity, going like, hey, but I've always thought this thing is like that. Now I might have to realize. So do yourself a favor. If you think, well, let's say it this way, if you knew the amount of emails dropped and the amount of cool projects not happening where we literally say we're going to be doing it for free, or hey, we're going to do it together, because people are like, oh, it's already 3 o'clock, and if I now start that project, it's probably going to lead to another email from them, and then I have to sit down with them, and then, it's actually kind of, can we just use the sponsoring budget and put it to the same soccer club that we always do, so put our little logo here? Well, you can do that, you're just not going to change anything. Fifth part, don't be a fan. This is something that we've learned from our 3 years in the sports world. A lot of people are in the sports world, and I don't want to offend anybody, but they're there from the complete different reasons. You grew up with soccer. It was the most amazing thing forever. Then you started working at the bank, and then you had a chance to become a member in a club, and you worked your way up, and blah, blah, blah. And then you joined the federation, and now you're there. It's the greatest thing that ever happened. Wow. But you're probably the wrong person. You're not needed. You're probably just sitting there. It's great, and you've did your politics, but you're not the person actually doing the job right. So always go back and reflect, do I really like this because it is good, because it brings the sport forward, or do I just like this because it's good for me and I feel well? And the worst thing that we've probably seen is sponsoring money. We go to a lot of big companies. That's why we included the brands over there, because we were able to create very, very cool and intense marketing campaigns with meaning, with getting people active, with leading over to clubs, with signing people up for training sessions. And at the same time, you're sitting at these things like, no, we're just going to put our money like where we've always put, because we get the nice lounge up there and we can sit with all the other people, and we can invite the family and we watch all the matches, and hey, our company's doing well. Yes, but is it because you love what you do, or you love being the object of that? Or do you really want to participate in bringing that thing forward and helping others? Sixth part, sorry guys, don't keep calm. Like you said, Fiona, we're so deep in already. Like with climate change, it's so good to see finally people are realizing it, and it's getting a big audience and so on. With that thing, people are not. There's places in the world where nobody does sports. Go to the Midwest in the US, go to Indonesia, to the rural areas. it's not a joke anymore. Like, this thing is harming us, and the longer we wait to actually get people active, the harder it is to get them back out. Because one thing that you have to understand, and I want you to very, very much find the difference between this. So this is one, I think it was the, I don't know, Melbourne finals or something, and pay close attention what happens. Who notices it? Anybody? Excuse my French, it's fucking boring. Like, honestly, I'm supposed to watch that for 3 hours? I'm gonna show you how this looks if you are now in the age of between 8 and 20.
Every Counter-Strike fan starts to gather, whether it's at home on the sofa at the PC or here in the Spodek. We are the generation that has seen eSports in its humble beginnings. You are the people who found eSports, drove eSports, and believed in it. It's called the biggest eSports event on the planet for a reason. Welcome to the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship 2018.
Has been fantastic. Breather him looking for the ace. Headshots all over the place as Nico lights them up.
Skadoodle, your turn. And he's already got the first. He goes. Oh, hits Nico in the smoke as well. He doesn't know it, but he goes back out. He's got the flow.
Good. I'm not saying you should love esports now. I'm not saying that shooting games, ego shooters are cool, all that. But what I need you to understand is the mechanics of how these format works and why they're gathering people by the millions every single day. Fortnite, very big thing, went on a, I think it's just a hoax or whatever, went on a black hole. All players all around the world. It's on the news constantly. Never. Like, this happened with... So, what you need to understand is, it is an experience. They do just an amazing, great job of building an audience, making it very emotional, and being right in there. There's a funny story, by the way, when Thomas Bach was meeting, I think, the head of the eSports League. And you can say about the shooting games what you want. I don't like the violence, everything, absolutely agree. But it's a funny story where he was like, yeah, we're not going to let you into the Olympics because we don't think that glorifying death and combat is actually something that we stand for. And the guy, and he was 22, was like, sorry, what was your discipline in the Olympics again? He was like, fencing. Just saying, like, it is a cognitive skills, it's fun, we should embrace it, don't be against it. You don't have to work with them, but at least find out what are the parts that work for them that you can take for yourself. Seventh and most important part, don't feel alone. There's a lot of people out there. There's people that help you. There's people like us that are just trying to push the boundaries, reach out to other people. This event here is amazing because only from the last couple of sessions I've already noticed that it's a completely different kind of people. We don't have the old function or federation kind of type here, I feel. It's more like people that really want to do something. So reach out, network, try out things, fail, work with startups, run into the wall, wipe the blood off your face, turn around and go the other direction. Because that's how normal things happen. Just a little quick one. This is what we're working on right now. This is our future view. That's the big shot that we're doing right now, which is a completely new form of sport, bringing both together. So this is the first arena. It's basically soccer in a real-world virtual environment. You don't need to have any trackers, you don't need to have anything else. You're basically playing in real world with your physical skills, with your team, the anticipation, the strategy, everything that goes into sports, but you're not running around on a field of grass from left to right. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, we're going to get to that in a second, because before that, I'm going to ask Fiona to go right over here with Rado. And Rado's going to show you how to use the multi-ball. The multi-ball is a very simple solution. So this is what we basically created for schools, for anything. It's super rigid. You can hit it, you can kick it, you can even like put liquids on it because we've been asked that from schools. And it's a very standalone system to have a sports gamification like on a slow basis for all sorts of sports. You can play soccer, you can play against each other, with each other. It's super engaging. It's a little bit addictive, which we love a lot. And yeah, let's maybe start with a game, maybe like Space Invaders. There you go. So, and while Fiona is playing, everybody can try this out. We're also going to have it open in the breaks. While we're playing that, I'm going to actually answer the questions because I think there will be quite a few, right? So everything is also time-based. You see, when she loses the ball, actually the impact goes down. So you move a lot, and it's very, very active. Good. Any questions?
Has she tried it before?
Huh? No, she hasn't tried it before. You got to stay behind the line, though. That's cheating. That also doesn't work if you're trying to reach a certain goal most of the times, by the way. Yeah. Good. You can also try if you play tennis, go ahead. Like there's a lot of different applications. Am I right that there's no questions whatsoever? Over there.
Sorry, can you get through this?
How much it is? It's very cheap. I understand. Thanks.
One, two. There you go. So we have different ranges. We go from the super pro way. This one is 6,900 euros, all included. You just need a projector. You can set it up yourself. We're trying to bring down the price as much as we can because we launched this 4 months ago. So the first 30 systems are now going out, have been going out already. But I think we can, in the long run, bring it down to 2,000, 3,000 euros. Any other questions? Well, that's a first. Okay, if there's no more questions. Oh, over there. Can somebody bring her the mic? Oh, there's somebody coming.
Where in Germany are you guys located?
Where we have courts already or locations?
Yeah, location.
Yeah, we're right now in Hamburg, Paderborn, Dresden, Munich, one coming up in Berlin. Yeah, I think it's 5 right now.
And the main office?
No, actually, there's a few multi-balls already, but we rarely track where they go.
And the main office, sorry?
The name of the sport?
No, the main office. The central of the office.
Oh, the centers. In Dresden, it's Ballsport Arena, which is right in central. In Paderborn, it's Ahorn Sport Club. In Munich, it's the TSV Freimann and Sportinsel, I think. And in Hamburg, it's... I forgot.
I will try to get in touch later. Thank you.
Please do. Can we have a mic over here?
Test.
Oh, there you go.
Excuse me. I just wanted to know, is this designed just for like schools or clubs? I mean, with these dimensions, I mean, suppose like my children now with the PlayStation always there, but I can't get such a giant screen at home. So is it meant for public schools or public clubs or whatever, or also at homes?
It's a very interesting point. So the size has a real reason why it's exactly that size. So first of all, our sensors are in the frame, so you don't need normally these systems are very hard to maintain, so we try to give it to operators to build their business model on. So it's Always, it's very precise, it's very rigid. So the reason why we're not looking at consumers right now is because we strongly believe that going to a location and meeting other people and also scheduling it in your daily routine is a very, very important part. If you condense it smaller down, you basically have a touchpad. You put a big glass on a screen and you can hit it with hard balls, then you would have the same. But what we're trying to do is the size, if I make that half as big, you're not moving as much. So most of the logic, like where the colors appear here, are intended that I know where you're standing, you're throwing the ball over there, I know that you have to take 3 steps to catch it again, or have to run to grab it. So you always need some space. We're trying to stay away from the whole like, oh look, it's a gimmick activation. It's real sports, like people, you will see in a second, sweat from it.
Thank you.
Over there.
Hi, I have a question. If you have specific countries or regions that are more interested in this type of activities?
Yeah, it's actually very interesting. In the beginning, we said, okay, we were doing market research and we tried to find out where does it make the most sense to launch. And then we did a very bold move for a startup. We said, we're going to launch everywhere right away. Like, we're going to fly to New Zealand. We have 2 centers in New Zealand, and they were one of the first ones getting it. Just because we know that the lead time and the rate of integration for these things is super long. For a school to get this, they have to apply for the budget and so on. So we said, let's just cater it out to everybody. What we've noticed, the Benelux, especially the Netherlands, are in their rate of innovation is staggering. Like, it's amazing. Like, they were literally like, we need this in our school. Send it to us. 4 weeks later, they set it up, and 3 months later, it's like, look, this is a report. So the Netherlands has been super open, the Nordics in general. We also have a couple of places in Poland which are very open to it. US is now starting big time. And Australia and New Zealand, out of some reason, are also very, very active in that area. That's it? Perfect. Then thank you very much. I invite you all. There's global leaderboards and there's daily leaderboards. So whoever plays, there you go. Right now you're in spot 2. Go compete a little bit and bring out the skills. Thank you, everybody.